Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back another video today. And today, the Houston Texans have made, I've said it in a different video, the Texans have made one of the best trades Nick Caserio has made as the Houston Texans general manager. I'm going to say that. Trading for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Look, if you ask me what is the most impactful trade of Nick Caserio's time with the Houston Texans, I would tell you it's the Will Anderson trade. But if you look at that Will Anderson trade, the Texans gave up a lot of assets, and that's fine because I think he's going to become the best Houston Texans pass rusher in Texans history outside of J.J. Watt. So that's fine that the Texans gave up, a ton to get Will Anderson. So, but it was I think it was a fair deal for both sides, both the Texans and the Cardinals, and I look at this trade with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and this is just a complete steal. So, look, maybe the Will Anderson trade was a steal. It probably was. I think you could consider that trade a steal. But the Texans actually had to give up a lot. The Texans barely are giving up anything to land a guy here in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who had 6 interceptions last season, returning those 6 interceptions for 116 yards, and he had 12 passes defensed, 1 forced fumble, 59 tackles, and 2 tackles for loss. And sure, last season in Detroit, the 2023 season, yes, he struggled a little bit because he was injured. But then we're also talking about a guy in Philadelphia in 2022 who had 12 games, 12 starts, 6 interceptions, and 54 yards returned on 8 passes defense and 1 sack in 2022 with the Eagles defense. And what did the Texans give up? They give up one of Nick Caserio's, I would say Nick Caserio's worst draft pick of his time with the Houston Texans. Nick Caserio has done 4 drafts as a Houston Texans GM. This is Nick Caserio's 5th draft coming up in April, at the end of April. And I think the draft starts April 24th. Yeah, I believe so. You got one of the worst draft picks Nick Caserio has ever made, probably the worst, and Kenyon Green, who has really been more injured than he's been healthy. I mean, he's played. It's about half and half. Since the Texans have drafted him, if you look at it, since the Texans have drafted Kenyon Green, there's been 51 regular season games for this Houston Texans team since they drafted him, and he's only played in 27. If you want to include the playoff games, which he didn't play in the playoff games either. He did play in both playoff games this year. So, but if you include playoff games, the Houston Texans have played 55 games over the last 3 seasons. He's only played in 29. So, but not only has he been injured half the time in the last 3 years when the Texans have had him on the roster, but when he has been on the field at guard, he has been absolutely terrible. And he makes the Texans worse when he is out there on the field. And so the Texans send him to Philadelphia. And what else? Just a 2026 draft pick swap. A 5th-round pick going to Philadelphia, a 6th-round pick going to Houston. Sure, that could be good for Philadelphia to trade up next year. That's very solid for them. But, I mean, it makes this amazing trade for the Texans. This is going to be one of my favorite additions of the offseason because of, how big of a steal this is for the Houston Texans. And I would say this. I would expect Jimmy Ward to now get released by the Texans after this. I mean, what's the need for Jimmy Ward if you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Jalen Petrie, and Kalen Bullock? Absolutely no need for him. Texans just re-signed MJ Stewart today. So I will say that I think in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see Jimmy Ward get cut by the Texans. And that will clear some cap space for the Texans team. Let me know your thoughts on the Texans trade in the comment section, and peace out. Go Texans.